How much retirement income does $500,000 save for retirement generate? That's what we're going to talk about today on the Your Financial EKG YouTube channel. I want to go through two specific retirement income generation strategies. We're going to look at the 4% rule and how that works, and then we're going to dive into the software and see how a total portfolio alignment works when it comes to generating retirement income, and especially if you've saved $500,000 for retirement. We're going to look at David. He's 60 years old. He's got $500,000 saved for retirement. He's asking the question, can I retire? So let's look at the first strategy, and then we'll get into the software to get more details. So here's what we've got. We got the 4% rule plus inflation. Remember, when you're generating retirement income from your assets, you have to remember inflation. So the 4% rule has been around for a long time, and it's not necessarily a bedrock rule. It's just kind of a rule of thumb, right? Just don't spit into the wind, that kind of thing. It's a rule of thumb. But we love the rule of thumb because it seems to work year over year. And here's what it says. You take 4% from your retirement investing accounts plus inflation, and your money should last for about 30 years. Now, what are we experiencing over the last few years? Higher than expected inflation. So how does that play into it? That's what we're going to look at in the software. We're going to look at inflation. We're going to look at taxes. We're going to look at market volatility. But if we're just looking at the 4% rule on the board, here's what we've got. So we have $500,000. So what you do is you take 4% of your retirement assets, which is $20,000. So you're going to use that $20,000 a year for retirement income. Now, this can be in conjunction with Social Security, with pensions, with whatever you want, maybe rental income. For David, he strictly has $500,000 in an IRA. Okay, so there's no pensions. He's 60, so we're not to Social Security yet. So 4% of the $500,000 gives us $20,000 in annual income. And you can break that down on a monthly basis, plus inflation. So that's 3% of the $20,000, which gives us $20,600. Okay, so that is how much retirement income we're going to need for the year. Now, what you don't want to do, a lot of people will take the inflation number, the 3%, and they'll put it on the 500. What you essentially do is you take the 4 plus the 3, and that's 7. We don't want to do that. We want 3% of our 4% that we've pulled off for our retirement income. Now, let's look at this in years. Year 1, year 2, year 3. So in year 1, we have $500,000. We take out $20,000. That's our 4%. We have our inflation. That means we get $20,600 in retirement income for the first year of our retirement. Now, from year 1 to year 2, our investments grow at 2%. So that means we grow our investments at 2%, but we pull out 4% plus inflation. So now our $500,000 in retirement savings has gone to $489,400. Remember, we pulled this out, which is 4%. Let's just use round numbers. We only made 2%, so we're 2% less. Makes sense? So $489,400 is where we start year 2. So in year 2, we take out 4% of this $489 plus inflation, and that means we have $20,163 in income this year, right? Perfect. That's the 4% rule with inflation. Now, from year 2 to year 3, we grow by 6%. So this 489 grows in the market at 6%. We pull out our 4% right here. We grow at 6%, which means we're plus 2%, meaning we made 2% over and above what we pulled out in retirement income. So that puts us at $498,601. So again, we take out our 4%. There's the $19,944. That's our 4%. Plus inflation of $598. There's our inflation. So 20,542 is our 4% plus inflation retirement income. So you can see how the 4% rule is not a static figure. It's a adjusting figure based on what your investments are doing and based on inflation. Now that's why I want to look at the software, because I want to look at what's inflation, what do taxes and what do market volatility do over the long term. So if we're looking at how to generate retirement income from $500,000 in retirement savings, hold tight, we're going to do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at a total portfolio retirement income plan. So instead of picking out stocks and ETFs or real estate and saying, hey, buy this and get 12% and buy this and get 6%, what I want to do is look at, okay, David, this is how much you've got. This is when Social Security is going to start. This is what taxes look like. This is inflation over the long term. This is how much income you can exactly generate from your portfolio to make this last forever. You ready to do that? Let's go. All right, so here's what we've got. We've got David, and he is 60 years old. Now, David was making $90,000 a year, and he lives in Virginia. He wants to retire, so we're going to show him retired in the software because that is what he wants to do. Now, David's Social Security is $3,000 at 67. So at 67, his full retirement benefit for Social Security would be $3,000. If he decided to take it earlier, and we'll go through those scenarios, but if he decided to take Social Security earlier, he would get a reduced benefit. Now, let me show you what that looks like. So a reduced benefit, if he decided to take it at 62, he would only get $2,100. If he took it at 63, he's going to get $2,250, 64, $2,400, and you can see how that works all the way up until 67. Now, from 68, 69, and 70, he's actually going to get an increased benefit, $3,240 at 68, $3,480 at 69, and $3,720 at 70. It's 124% benefit if you wait until 70. So we're going to look at 67 first, and then we can adjust those Social Security timings, 62, 70, 64, depending on how long his money is projected to last. Again, we're trying to generate retirement income, but we've got to ask the question first, how long is this money going to last, right? Because we can hope that we can generate 15% a year, but that's not reality. So we got to look at reality for a little bit. So we go to assets. Here's what we've got. Two simple assets. He's got $500,000 in a traditional IRA. Now, if he stays working, it's in a 401k, but we're going to assume that he's rolling it over into a traditional IRA, and he's got a bank account that's got $15,000 in it. So this is his emergency fund, and here's his retirement investments. And we have a home that's paid for that's worth $400,000. So if you look, his total portfolio value is $915,000, $515 in liquid assets and $400 in a protected asset that's paid for. Now, the weighted return that we're going to use for his portfolio is 6%, meaning the money that's in the market is going to earn a 6% rate of return. We're just projecting that out. The stock market has averaged 8% over the last 50 years with inflation. So we're going to go to 6 to be more conservative. We can show 5 and 4, but we're going to start at 6. So let's go to expenses. Now, his current monthly expenses are $4,000, and we're going to give that an inflation rate of 3.27%. That means this $4,000 is going to grow on an annual basis of 3.27%. Now, cash flows is where we would add in any kind of vacation, any kind of maybe if he had a daughter and she was getting married, we need to take money out. At this point, we're not worried about that. All we're trying to figure out is how long is our money going to last? Now, let's go to retirement. So here we go. We're 60 years old. We've got $500,000 in retirement assets, and we're trying to figure out how long this money is going to last. So if you look up here, we're out at 76. So we're out at about 16 years. Over here, this will show us what we need to either put into the portfolio or our required rate of return in order to make this money last at least until his 90s. So we would need to earn 10.73% per year, which is unheard of, or we need to add $428,000 into the portfolio. Now, he could sell his house and add that into his portfolio, but then if he rents, we're going to increase his expenses. So unless he wants to live under a bridge, then that's not necessarily a viable option. So you can see if we take Social Security at 67, there it is kicking in at 3,000. But at that point, our assets have fallen to $249,000 and we're out of money at 76. Now you're asking how much retirement income do we need to generate? Well, for him, in the year 2023, we need to generate, starting in April, $4,000 a month with inflation. So you can see inflation on this dollars. Inflation takes a big bite. Inflation is compound interest just working in the opposite direction of compound interest in your 401k. You put money into your 401k, that's compound interest, but that's working in your favor. Compound interest on inflation is working in your disadvantage. It's taking that dollar bill that you got and making it worth 90 cents, not 100 cents, okay? So we need to be able to generate a little bit more income in order to make this last longer. Now, what are we going to do? You know, a lot of people will say, well, he needs to invest in real estate, or he needs to put it in this ETF, this MLP. It's paying 12% guaranteed, man. Well, I've been around 16 years and nothing is guaranteed forever, especially in the stock market. And so we need to look at this on a holistic scale and say, hey, let's take some common sense steps to get you to retirement. So the first thing I always do is I go back to expenses and I say, hey, Dave, $4,000 in expenses, can you lower that? In his case, he couldn't. That's his bare bones. 4,000 is where he needs to be. And I said, okay. So the other option is Social Security. Let's look at Social Security. So let's go to Social Security at 62. What if we claim at 62 instead of 67? So instead of having those 7 years of no income where we're pulling out income from our investments, what if we take it at 62? So we go back, boom. We start taking Social Security at 62. There's 2,100. Now look, we got to 78. So we were at 76 and now we're at 78. So we're moving in the right direction. So as a financial advisor, I might say, hey, Dave, we might want to take Social Security early. That might make sense, but I think you're going to have to work a couple more years. So let's look at that. Let's go back and I'll say, hey, Dave, what if, now remember, he still is working. So what if you worked until 62? Let's just work 2 more years. We're going to take Social Security at 62, but let's say you work 2 more years. By working 2 more years, let's flip this over to a 401k because now it's become a 401k. And let's put his contribution. He makes $90,000. He gets a 4% contribution. So it's $300 on his end. He gets a 4% match, $600. That's right where we're at. So we're going to put $600 in. We go to retirement. 83. We're moving in the right direction. Now, let me show you something we look at for people. This really helps a lot of people out. We go to this pre-retirement section here. What this tells me, here's Dave working. Okay, here's that Social Security kicking in at 62. So here's our gross salary. Here's our net monthly income after our contribution and after taxes. Here's our net monthly expenses. So Dave has a green, he has leftover money at the end of each month. Instead of his month being longer than his money, he has money left over. And I'll say, Dave, you got $14,000 left over at the end of each month. Can we take half of that and invest it and try to build your retirement up? So we go back to assets. Let's add in an asset. So there's David. Let's just add in a brokerage account. We call that a freedom fund. Let's put this into non-qualified. Let's make this let's put managed money at risk. And we're going to put in $7,000 a year. So that's $583 a month. We're going to do that till we retire, which is 2 years. Now what does that do for us? Boom. It gets us an extra year. So again, we're moving in the right direction. And so we still have to look at this and say, hey, Dave, now we've got to make some tougher decisions. Do we continue to work? Do we possibly work part-time? Like if you don't want to work your 40-hour job, and let's say he doesn't want to work his 40-hour job. Now we come back here and I'll say, okay, at 62, your Social Security is $2,100. We've got to make up $2,513. So in the year 2025, we need to make up some money. What if you made $1,000 a month? So $12,000 a year, and we were able to maybe cut in half this income coming out of our portfolio. What would that do for it? Remember, we got to keep our money. We can't make too much money and be on Social Security either. So we got to, navigate that. So we go to cash flows. We add in some part-time work. So let's say PT work. Let's say $1,000. Let's start this in 25. And let's just do it for, let's say 5 years. He works part-time, making $1,000. We get a 1% increase. And we're just going to pay expenses with that part-time work, okay? Now we go to retirement, and we continue to move in the right direction. So we're at 86. So you can see how there's steps that need to be taken in order to continue to move us. Remember, at 86, he still has a house that's paid for, that he could do a reverse mortgage, he could sell it, whatever. So all we're trying to do is get him to the finish line and taking the right steps. It's not about how much you can generate always. It's about, does it actually work in reality? And then we start putting those common sense steps into place. I hope this has helped. Thanks for watching. God bless. Bye-bye.